In 2024, we witnessed something extraordinary. The first Bitcoin ETF approval and massive institutional adoption and an unprecedented change of markets as a consequence. But what I'm about to share with you about 2025 is even more significant. Think back to those moments that changed everything. Bitcoin at $1 in 2010. Tesla shares at $17 in 2010, or Apple at $22 in 2008, or even Coca-Cola when it first went public. We've all heard the stories of people who spotted these opportunities early, and those who wished they had. And these were not just lucky guesses. They were moments when visionary companies and, first and foremost, technologies transformed entire industries. And right now, we are watching MicroStrategy, for example, execute one of the boldest strategies in financial history, accumulating Bitcoin on an unprecedented scale and causing all sorts of second-grade effects because of that. And they're not just buying, they are positioning to become the largest Bitcoin holder in the whole world. And this is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. And I'll break it down for you. In this video, I'll share with you why 2024 market shifts were just the warm-up for what's coming and 3 critical developments most investors are completely missing. The exact patterns that I personally am watching for 2025 and how the next 12 to 18 months could trigger a wealth transfer similar to what we have seen in the early Bitcoin, in the early Tesla, or in the early Apple days, okay? This isn't about chasing the next quick profit, absolutely not. I'll show you with real data and analysis why 2025 could be the most important year for wealth building since the 2008 financial crisis. And by the end of this video, you will understand why major institutions are repositioning their assets and what MicroStrategy really means for the market and how to spot these opportunities before they become headline news, because then it is too late. And most importantly, how you can position yourself for what is coming, whether you are an experienced trader or just starting out. What you will learn in the next 30 minutes could fundamentally change how you view money and markets. All right, so let's get started. First of all, very, very important. This is not financial advice. It's just my personal opinion. Obviously, this is entertainment. So if you want to make any decisions about your own investments, then consult someone who is a professional and actually licensed to do that, all right? So I think there is a bunch of matters that are really more important than others to pay attention to, especially in the coming year. And also learnings from this year that will help us or enable us to make the right decisions coming up in this coming year. And in fact, I even believe that the opportunities that are stacking up right now are historic. They're just incredible. And it's your decision whether you want to take advantage of potential opportunities, because for that you need to be a risk taker. You need to also, take calculated risks and understand risk management. Or if you are just a cynical person, it's like, none of that's going to work and it's all scam and blah, 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 and only rich people can profit from that, then you're not going to get anywhere. Anyway, so really, I would encourage a mindset that is oriented towards growth, towards opportunities, but not naive. At the same time, you need to really do your homework and actually make proper decisions that will enable you to capture what is happening here, which is of historic proportions. So the first thing I would look at is that in 2024, the most defining moments that we had was, first of all, in the beginning of the year, the approvals of the Bitcoin ETFs. And they proved to be also of historical proportions because the size of these ETFs grew within 11 months bigger than all gold ETFs in, I think, 20-something years. So the demand for that is incredible. And there is a bunch of, let's just say, second grade or second order effects that are happening because of that. Because now suddenly more and more and more entities on the market can actually participate in the Bitcoin market. And that is driving game theory a big, big time. Then this, which I will explain in a little bit what I mean actually by that. The next biggest defining moment, in my opinion, is the red sweep US election and the impact of that. Because now we have a government that is pro-economy, pro-deregulation, economic growth, pro-entrepreneurial spirit, pro-crypto. So I think the next 4 years will be incredible in the US. Like no other place in the world can actually catch up with that. That's my personal opinion. And why? Because they have won so massively in the election, and they are really putting people in key places that will shake things up massively. And for us, that means we need to understand what that means from an opportunistic point of view and where we can capture value out of that, okay? The next thing is certainly AI growth. The speed at which AI is developing is just incredible. And I'm not just talking about ChatGPT, but if you are not using AI and you don't understand the first thing about it, then it's a problem. You must do that, in my opinion. It doesn't even matter in what aspects of your life. Once you start using it, you will be amazed by what capabilities this technology already has. Because now, a lot of the cynical point of view is like, all these companies are investing all this money, but it's not monetized, not captured anywhere. So it's just like, losing at the moment. But that's not right. That's absolutely not right, in my opinion. And again, as an investor, you have to be forward-looking. You cannot be reactive to something after it happened, right? So this is the part where risk-taking is important and where you need to decide what kind of risk am I taking actually, and which area should I focus on where the risk-taking has a higher chance of actually succeeding. And AI is certainly an aspect of that. So even if you think like, NVIDIA stock already rise so much, and it did. But the amount of, AI growth and the necessity for chips that are mainly produced by NVIDIA continues to be in the market. So, and there's no substitute to that anytime very soon. So what does that mean? It means there is potential for growth continuously from here. And you should not ignore that, in my opinion. Then the next biggest thing, obviously, that happened was the MicroStrategy stock. What happened to MSTR stock and the whole narrative behind it. How they are, announced their 2021 plan after the election, which they basically have convertible debt, and that strategy is working so massively well. And also selling ATM shares, which is for the first time maybe in the history of financial markets, not dilutive but accretive. You may not understand what that exactly means, and I'm probably going to do a separate video about MicroStrategy. I can't go into all the very depths of everything right now in this video because I don't want to make it too long, but you should hear about, wow, there is actually issuance of new shares that is accretive. Well, that never existed ever. So essentially, he's selling stocks to buy Bitcoin to put them on his balance sheet. So he immediately makes it accretive. It's just incredible. And at the same time, he offers, like MicroStrategy, by he I mean Michael Saylor, the chairman of the company. Essentially, he has a product for every risk type and entity in the market. He has bonds, he has stocks. The options market around it is so huge, and I'll come to that as well. But what we're seeing is that, and this gets me to the next point, is that this Bitcoin treasury strategy is just insane. And there's more and more and more companies that are just realizing, like, wait a minute, why are we actually keeping treasuries only for our cash reserves? And then there's even companies that are copying MicroStrategy's approach into becoming first and foremost a Bitcoin treasury company. So the whole game theory of because the first mover has gotten such a big advantage, the stock raised so much and the demand is so big, and that combined with the whole red sweep and the enabling of the crypto and creating all the rules around it that will make it even more accessible for more and more companies, this triggers just more and more companies and that want to do the same, that want to have the same advantage, that want to capture the same economic wave. And you should be part of that as well if you believe in that, right? So those were the defining moments of 2024, in my opinion. Now, if we look at the broader market context, what we see is that actually the economy in the world is not working at the same pace everywhere. It's literally the US economy is doing better than in Europe, is doing better than in China. And we also, because of that, see that there is, macroeconomic factors that are also playing into that even more, which means that the Fed itself, the central bank in the US, is probably not going to cut rates as strongly as China did, as Europe is doing. And because we still have, more inflation in the US, but also just like a better working, more robust economy. Now, we will see how the Trump administration will put pressure on the Fed because they want obviously low rates. But if the rates are low enough, in relationship to how strong the economy is running, then they are probably still going to be higher than in other parts of the world, which means that the dollar, in my eyes, continues to be center stage. So if you're looking for currency trades, I think dollar long is more a play I would be looking at for the coming year because of these macroeconomic factors and the divergences between the central banks. And another thing, very important, the regulatory developments, because Europe is basically one bad economy with too much immigration and, in fact, too much regulation. So, as much as because I'm from Germany, basically my heart bleeds saying these things, but I don't see how Europe can compete. I really don't see it. Neither, Germany has completely castrated its economy. It has completely, removed the ability to have a proper industry, to have proper car manufacturing, business going on. And these companies as well, also, they missed the train of being, catching up with the time correctly and the technology demands, So basically, electric cars in Europe only sold because they were super much, supported by government subsidies. And those subsidies stopped and the selling of the cars stopped. Now they have all these extra cars that they're not selling because in China they're not selling anymore because China's economy itself is doing not too well. But also China has caught up in car production, especially EVs, in a way like no other place did. So the only place that really continues to be working really well is the US, and particularly even internationally out of the US is Tesla. And the regulatory development, and this is why I believe Elon Musk got so heavily involved into the election and now even in Doge and in other things that he will continue to, try to find big impact, is that if the regulatory issues in the US also become more welcoming of the technologies that Tesla and all the other Musk companies are building, then he will change the world in a massive, massive way. So that's why I would keep an eye on these regulatory developments a lot to also see which of these companies are enabled how and which technologies. And because this is where you always need to look like, what is the fastest horse? You want to get on the fastest horse. You don't want to spread yourself too thin. You don't want to be diversified, as they say. You want to be putting all your eggs in one basket, but in the right basket, right? Of course, you got to exercise caution. Of course, you got to be on your toes. Of course, you should not over leverage. Of course, you should pay attention to your risk management and all of these things. But nonetheless, if you're looking for growth, diversification is not the way to reach growth, all right? So the next point is just look at these beautiful charts. So here we have Bitcoin. It went up after the ETFs got basically approved, and then it hovered sideways all the way until the US election, and then we got all this push back to, or not back, up to 100 grand basically, where we are hovering now. So I think that right now the price is probably gonna stay around 100K plus minus, but should, and this is the next big narrative, and I'll come to that in a second, should the US really adopt a strategic reserve of Bitcoin? That would be insane. Even the purchases of MicroStrategy alone, which now announced that they want to have the ability to issue up to 10.3 billion more of shares, that would be just insane. And that buying pressure will just drive Bitcoin up. And let's not forget that even, big people like Ray Dalio, Larry Fink, they also came around and are looking at Bitcoin as a store of value. Larry Fink is even looking at crypto generally as a technology for tokenization. So that's another thing that I would certainly keep an eye on, because here we have the fastest and the biggest trajectory for growth possible, okay? MicroStrategy, that story is just insane. And it definitely requires a separate video to explain to you what's happening here. But essentially, the short version is MicroStrategy is issuing debt, is issuing is diluting its own shares to buy more and more and more and more Bitcoin. And essentially, exactly after the US election success, the red sweep, MicroStrategy and Michael Saylor went berserk. They started to add Bitcoin and take on debt like there's no tomorrow. Essentially, they announced a 21 billion, like basically in total $42 billion of between convertible bonds and ATM selling of new issued stocks. And that was supposed to be for 3 years. But the market accepted it so well that they almost already exhausted that. So we will see an even more speeding up of that. And that's just a narrative that you must not, you need to be on that train, in my opinion. Another thing interesting for the whole inflation conversation is obviously oil, which is not trading as high. So that's in fact good. And I understand that Trump is even, considering that the US should produce more oil and should just, control the price of oil to the downside even more to enable lower inflation and in fact even give the Fed more reasons to ease on their side as well. So I would definitely keep an eye on the oil price. That's always an important enabler of one or the other dynamic in the market, okay? So this one here is actually a really big one because we saw rate cuts this year. And ever since the Fed cut rates, and you can see like basically here we had a really big 100 basis points cut, still the 10-year yield went up. Now imagine if they didn't cut rates, what would have happened? So basically what the bond market is signaling is that we need to be compensated for the risk we're taking to hold dollars because you are overspending. Now what it means technically is that the Fed will very unlikely just cut rates into infinity like Europe did, or like China did. Which means that's why we have these divergences. That's why the dollar more than likely is going to continue to be stronger. And if the US actually creates a regulatory framework around stablecoins, which would enable the rest of the world to use stablecoins for their own transactions instead of anything else, because everybody wants to transact in dollar all over the world. That would increase the demand for treasuries and the US dollar in a massive way. So the US actually has two opportunities here. They can solidify the world's reserve currency, their own, the dollar, by enabling basically and bringing home technology, which is stablecoins and crypto. And at the same time, they could even prop up their own balance sheets by using Bitcoin as a strategic reserve, front-running the rest of the world, which would push the price up massively and enable game theory so that other countries need to follow. And at the same time, even, provide all this, business enabling environment. So the US is in a fantastic place like no other place in the world is. So that's why my focus for this coming year is certainly only in the US. I don't think any other market comes even close. Now, this is an interesting thing about inflation. And this is why I believe also Tesla has a crucial role, and even Elon Musk here with all his technologies. Because just, there's a bunch of technology developments, where Tesla can even have basically lowering the effect of inflation. It will make things cheaper, more accessible because of the technology. Now, even whether it's Optimus, the robots, or the self-driving cars, or any of these things, they are really, really helpful to bring costs down. And that is another matter where I would keep my eyes on. If you didn't buy Tesla this year when it was beaten down so much, then you just didn't pay attention to the potential. Now, of course, if the election would have turned out differently, we would not have that conversation. Crypto would be dead. Tesla would be dead. Maybe even Elon Musk in jail. Who knows? But those are the kinds of risks where you need to look for what's the upside, what's the downside, and what kind of world do you want to bet on? And I believe that I always want to bet on the kind of world that brings in better technology, that brings in better quality of life, that brings in, innovation and helps more and more people to tap into wealth. And that is certainly not what the Democrats were doing. Not even a little bit. Now, my learnings from 2024, they are basically that you always need to keep your eyes on the data. So one thing I didn't do too well is that I did not believe in Solana, for example, to be able to do that kind of comeback that it actually did. And if you look at the price of Solana, it went all the way up to 260. And why did I not? Because I had PTSD from this whole FTX situation. And I basically thought of Solana being the SBF coin. That was wrong. Because and I looked at the data, but I just chose to ignore it. But the amount of development, of daily active users, of developers, of everything that actually gives a chain and a token of a chain value, those numbers were growing all the time. So in a way, it's not even a surprise that Solana went all the way that it went. And it corrected quite massively now, which I believe is actually an opportunity. Because if you look at just that stat alone, this is a very fresh stat. 67% of all blockchain transactions take place on Solana. Now, I know people would argue, yeah, it's because of the meme coins, because of this, because of that. You know what? Maybe. But more importantly is keep that number in sight. Continue to observe and analyze. Is Solana continuing to take on the major share of what's happening in blockchain? Because if it does, then it needs to grow in market cap massively. Compare just the market cap of Solana to the market cap of Ethereum, and you will see that Solana, even after going so much higher already, has a massive upside potential. And now, also, you must not look back saying like, it was trading at $20 not too long ago, I've missed the train. That's not how it works. You have to look at how much more can it actually go up based on the real metrics. How much is another competitor trading at, like Ethereum, which is trading around 3,500, close to 4,000, while Solana's trading at 190, okay? So you could see that there is more upside. So my personal learning from 2024 is mainly that keep your eyes on the data. Never let your opinion about something, take over the analysis part of actual data, okay? So anything I just mentioned today, whether it's MicroStrategy, Bitcoin, AI, Tesla, all of these things are data-based. You could see it solidified in actual, tangible data, and not just by opinions, okay? Very, very important. So 2025, my outlook is that I believe the central bank divergence will continue to stay in place. I don't see how Europe can get out of its rut, even though at some point some European stocks could be, like so much trading below value, like Solana did at some point, that it could be actually interesting. But I don't see the euro as a currency making any, just MiCA that's coming in now, the crypto regulatory framework, is so disabling to crypto innovation. So I don't understand what Europe really wants. I really don't get it, because it's not economic growth, it's not innovation, and it's not going with the time. So for me, as an investor, I would say like, thank you. Euro is an absolute shitcoin. I'm not interested in that. And I think that the central bank divergence, especially if the US approves a real framework for stablecoins, will bring so massive demand to the dollar that, the dollar, at least I know that Trump will not want the dollar to become too expensive. But still, the dynamics are here to continue to support a rather stronger dollar versus any other currency, in my opinion. Now, Bitcoin and crypto related. Look, that narrative is the most important one. You have the strategic reserve that potentially is coming in the US. You have also, like a regulatory framework for crypto tokens generally, what are the rules? That was the big issue that the crypto industry in the US had, and especially also with the SEC head Gensler, that basically didn't provide any rules, but sued everybody. And now what we're seeing is actually opposite. So the people that are put in place in the US, in the SEC, in the Treasury, like all of these people are rather crypto and business enabling type of persons. So that is very, very positive. So this is where you need to have your eyes on. Like 100%, it's impossible to not do that. It's really, really important, okay? Then AI and tech. So what's going to happen with Tesla? What's going to happen with other AI technologies? And this is something I would definitely also keep my eyes on. There will be more and more interesting investment opportunities in that space as well, okay? And meanwhile, I would also look at income generating strategies, because with all of these things happening, certainly what's going to be there, or what's going to be happening, in my opinion, is heightened volatility. More volatility is not necessarily something bad, because you need to understand how to handle volatility. Because volatility means, if you use it the right way in the options market, is that you can make a ton of money generating income with volatility type of strategies. So volatility strategies might be something that you also want to understand, start to understand better of how that stuff actually works. How can I make use of volatility to generate an income for myself? If you don't know anything about that, that's something you absolutely need to pay attention to. So here we have, for example, strategic reserve from Senator Lummis in the US, and some people say that Trump might actually do it in the very first day of going into office and work in that direction. Nobody really knows. It could be a disappointment. If they completely fail doing that, then obviously the price of Bitcoin will react to the downside. If they do it, I believe that will kickstart so much more interest in Bitcoin and so much more game theory across different nations worldwide, that it would drive the price of Bitcoin much, much higher. That's definitely something you need to have your eyes on. Here we have MicroStrategy, okay? So you see MicroStrategy, how much more Bitcoin he just acquired after the election. It's insane. And you know, some people say like, he's crazy, he's borrowing money, it's a Ponzi to buy Bitcoin. But you know what? History rhymes. And we have the story of Hugo Stinnes out of Germany during the Weimar Republic time. So what he would do is that he would borrow as much of fiat currency and buy hard assets. In that case, it was steel and metals. And he actually made a huge amount of money using the very much same strategy Michael Saylor is using now, with Bitcoin as the hard asset. So this whole strategy is not new. Just the means it's being executed with have caught up to the current times. And in fact, there's never been a harder asset in the history of mankind than Bitcoin. It's simply true. It's a factual statement. It's not an opinion. So, you know, if you want to see that as an opportunity, I think you'd be more on the winning side than if you want to be cynical about that and saying like, oh no, that's not going to work. That the government's going to stop that, this and that and that. No, the government's actually in the US, with all the people that are in there and coming in now, are actually looking at taking advantage of these things. So you should too. Here we have another example for income generation. So Strive Asset Management, for example, by the way, a company led by Vivek Ramaswamy and JD Vance, so the vice president, and Vivek also like a big figure Trump supporter and actually heading now together with Elon Musk, the Department of Government Efficiency. So Strive is actually starting now an ETF for the convertible bonds of MicroStrategy or any other companies that are doing the same thing. These convertible bonds, I'll explain that in a different video, but that's basically the low-risk version tapping into the Bitcoin's MicroStrategy story. And at the same time, also, if we just go to Tesla, there are ETFs that do the whole options trading for you. So you can see like TSLY actually done 49,000 in distributions on 100,000 invested, meaning the volatility on the Tesla stock actually generated income investors 49% on their investment. Regardless of what the stock did, the stock is a different conversation. If you're not into growth, you're looking for income, then that is a very interesting thing. Volatility is what you need for income generation, because this is how the whole black skulls thing in the options, or how options are priced and the premiums actually, the amount of the premiums in options trading when you are an options seller is all based on, like, volatility is a big aspect of that. So don't ignore these things. This is how you make money in 2025, okay? And of course, you need to monitor your risk. You need to understand the technical risk factors that you are exposing yourself to. You need to understand whether the regulatory environment is actually moving in the direction that it needs to move in order to enable all these things. You also should keep an eye on market structure. You're looking at the prices, support and resistance levels on bigger time frames, just to understand where are we actually trading. So when Bitcoin dropped from 108K to 90K, it could be like a big deal, or MicroStrategy from 450 or even more to down again to 300. But if you look at it in the biggest, if you zoom out and you look on the you know, the market structure, you would see that that's actually still okay. Nothing bad has broken here. And you need to continue to keep your eyes on a systemic risk assessment, meaning like, because some people still expect that we will have a big crash, maybe something, another flu type of thing happening or something like that. Look, I don't want to be all negative, but that's why I do think like you should keep some cash portion on the side, because yes, prices are overstretched. Yes, we have gone quite a lot higher, but everything else is pointing towards going further from here. Nonetheless, you should have some cash reserves to, should we see corrections, to actually be able to take advantage of them, okay? And don't be leveraged. That's the killer. If you are leveraged and we see these shakeouts, then you will lose everything and you will not participate in the way back up. So make sure that this doesn't happen to you. So my conclusion is that I am US focused, all the way USA. That's what I'm looking for in 2025. That's my favorite market. That's my favorite, focus from a bunch of different angles: BTC, crypto, AI, tech, and also I want to take advantage of volatility. I want to see volatility as a feature to generate income and not something to be afraid of. And of course, keep some cash on the side in order to be able to, act strategically when there is some turmoil in the market. And all these things, they require that you follow what's happening in the market. You don't need to do it every day, all day, obviously not. But nonetheless, you should, you could spend your time wasting it on some sort of, I don't even want to say anything negative here, but you could also use your time a little bit every day just to stay, in touch of these things, or join a community that actually is following exactly these developments, so that you can make decisions that in fact could either, change your financial situations forever, or if you are already financially well settled, actually turn you very, very rich and settled for even more. Or, just make sure that you are not be left behind, because you really don't need to. These are opportunities that offer everyone, from smaller amounts to even bigger amounts, like so much potential upside. Like, maybe I haven't seen this yet in my lifetime, and I've been around for quite some moons here. So I literally, want you to see why this is so exciting, and so that you can find that interest in yourself, because you have to be interested yourself in order to participate in all of that. Like, for me, it's the best thing in the world. Like, I love following all these developments, making decisions, see how things work out, find which areas I need to improve in, and go harder on the ones I'm actually good at, and all of these things. And that's where I think, you grow as a person as well. And there's absolutely nothing you can regret from going down that way. So that's my video for today. Like I said, there's no financial advice. There's obviously a ton of depth that I needed to leave out here, simply because I don't want to make this video for too long. And the one thing I want to leave you with is, this is the most exciting times I have ever looked forward for the next year. And I hope you will be part of that. So if you like this video and you're also interested in making all of this work for you, then please share, show it to anyone you know that might be interested in also making a ton of positive results for himself or herself. And I'm really thankful and grateful for everyone that is supportive here of the channel. Thank you very much.